The stars shimmered against the black canvas of space as Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Terran Command, Station Sentinel Prime. Her eyes traced the scanner readings that stretched across the holographic display before her. The massive fleet approaching the border was impossible to miss. 500 capital ships, each one larger than anything humanity had built in the last century. Each one carrying enough firepower to destroy entire planets. The galactic sovereignty had arrived. Sarah had known this day would come. For 300 years, humanity had kept to itself. They had built their 200 systems in careful isolation. They had refused every invitation, every trade agreement, every attempt at contact from the sovereignty. The galaxy thought humanity was afraid. The galaxy thought humanity was weak. The galaxy was wrong. Behind her, Captain Marcus Webb cleared his throat. He commanded the warship Defiant, currently docked at the station. His face showed concern, but his voice stayed calm. Admiral, the sovereignty fleet has stopped at the neutral zone. They are sending a communication request. Sarah nodded slowly. She had read the reports about the sovereignty. 47 different species. 12,000 star systems. They called themselves an empire of peace and prosperity. But Sarah knew the truth. Every species in that empire had been given the same choice: join or be destroyed. Most chose to join. A few tried to resist. Those few no longer existed. Put them through, Sarah said. The holographic display shifted. A tall reptilian figure appeared. His scales were deep green and his eyes were golden. Ambassador Zekthor of the Sovereignty. Sarah had seen his file. He had negotiated the surrender of 16 different species. He was good at his job. Admiral Chen, Zekthor said. His voice was smooth like oil. I bring greetings from Emperor Thalzeron and the Galactic Sovereignty. We come in peace. Sarah kept her face neutral. Ambassador, your fleet is rather large for a peaceful greeting. Zekthor smiled. His teeth were very sharp. Unnecessary precaution. The galaxy can be dangerous. We would hate for anything unfortunate to happen during our discussions. What discussions? Sarah asked. Humanity has remained isolated for too long, Zekthor said. You have refused our offers of friendship. You have rejected our trade agreements. This cannot continue. The Emperor has decided that humanity must join the sovereignty. It is for your own protection. Protection from what? Sarah asked. From those who would harm you. From chaos, from war. The sovereignty brings order to the galaxy. And if we refuse? The smile left Zekthor's face. Then you will be brought into the sovereignty by force. This is called pacification. It is unpleasant but necessary. I hope it does not come to that. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Around the bridge, her crew watched her carefully. They knew what was coming. They had trained for this moment for years. Every Terran officer had. Ambassador Zekthor, Sarah said slowly. Humanity appreciates your concern. However, we must decline your offer. We will remain independent. Zekthor looked genuinely surprised. Admiral, I do not think you understand. No species has ever refused the sovereignty. Most beg to join us. You are alone out here. You have only 200 systems. We have 12,000. You cannot possibly believe you can resist us. We do not seek to resist you, Sarah said. We seek to be left alone. We are establishing a border at the terminus line. This is our space. That is your space. We will not cross into your territory. We expect the same from you. And if we do not respect this border, then there will be consequences, Sarah said quietly. Zekthor laughed. It was a cold sound. Consequences? From 200 systems against 12,000? Admiral, you are either very brave or very foolish. Perhaps both, Sarah replied. But the border stands. Cross it at your own risk. She closed the communication before Zekthor could respond. The bridge was silent. Activate the defense platforms, Sarah ordered. Across the terminus line, ancient machines began to wake. They had been sleeping for 300 years, waiting, watching. Now they powered up. Their weapon systems came online. Their targeting computers initialized. Their AI cores began calculating firing solutions. The Sovereignty fleet detected the power signatures immediately. Alarms blared across 500 capital ships. Sensors that had been reading nothing suddenly showed thousands of defensive platforms. They had been there all along, hidden, waiting. On his flagship, Zekthor stared at the readings in disbelief. The technology signatures made no sense. They were reading power levels that should not be possible. weapon systems that the sovereignty had never seen before, defense grids that covered every approach to Terran space. What are we looking at? He demanded. His chief scientist studied the data. His face had gone pale. Sir, these readings do not match anything in our database. The humans have technology we have never encountered. Their weapons appear to be centuries beyond our own. Zekthor felt a chill run down his spine. No species had ever surprised the sovereignty like this. No species had ever shown such advanced technology. How had humanity developed such weapons in isolation? A message arrived. It was broadcasted on all channels. Admiral Chen's face appeared on every screen in the Sovereignty fleet. Her voice was calm and clear. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of Terran Command. The border is now active. The terminus line marks the boundary of Terran space. Any ship that crosses this line without permission will be considered hostile. Any hostile ship will be disabled or destroyed. This is your only warning. We do not want war. We do not want your territory. We want to be left alone. Respect the border and there will be peace. Cross the border and there will be consequences. The choice is yours, the message ended. The Sovereignty fleet held position. 500 capital ships floated in the darkness. Behind them stretched an empire of 12,000 systems. Before them stood a species of only 200 systems. But that species had just drawn a line in space and dared the mighty Sovereignty to cross it. On Sentinel Prime, Captain Webb stood beside Admiral Chen. He watched the scanner displays showing the massive fleet at their doorstep. Do you think they will back down? He asked quietly. Sarah shook her head slowly. No, they have never been refused before. They will test us. They will send ships across the line to see what we do. They need to know if our threat is real. And when they do, then we show them that the border is not a bluff, Sarah said. We show them what happens when you cross a line that humanity has drawn. Webb nodded. He understood. Every Terran understood. The border was not just a military boundary. It was a promise. A promise to the galaxy that humanity would defend its right to exist independently. A promise to themselves that they would never again become the monsters they once were. 300 years ago, humanity had nearly destroyed itself. They had built weapons that could crack planets. They had created AI that could hack any system. They had developed technology that should never have been invented. The biowars had killed billions. When the smoke cleared, the survivors made a choice. They would isolate themselves. They would rebuild. They would never impose their destructive power on others. But isolation required protection, so they built the defense platforms. So they created weapons that could defend their borders without needing to conquer. So they drew a line and promised never to cross it. Now the Sovereignty stood at that line. An empire that had conquered 12,000 systems. An empire that had never been refused. An empire that believed might made right. They would learn that some lines should never be crossed. Admiral Chen watched the scanner displays. The Sovereignty fleet had not moved. Not yet, but they would. She could see it in the data. Ships were repositioning. Battle groups were forming. They were preparing to test the border. Let them come, she thought. Let them see what happens when you threaten humanity. Let them learn that isolation does not mean weakness. It means restraint. And restraint is the most dangerous weapon of all. Because when you choose not to use overwhelming power, it means you have overwhelming power to choose not to use. The Sovereignty was about to discover just how much power humanity had been restraining for 300 years. And they were about to learn why the border was not just a line in space, it was a warning. 2 days passed. The Sovereignty fleet remained at the border. They watched the defense platforms. They scanned the energy signatures. They analyzed every piece of data they could collect. What they learned made them nervous. On the flagship Eternal Glory, Emperor Thalziran sat in his command chamber. Around him stood his military council. Generals from a dozen different species. Warriors who had conquered hundreds of worlds. Now they stared at holographic displays showing technology they did not understand. What do we know? The Emperor asked. His voice was calm, but his eyes showed concern. General Kresh, a battle-scarred warrior from the Vectar species, stepped forward. Your Majesty, the humans have deployed over 3,000 defense platforms along the border. Each platform shows power readings that exceed our largest battle stations. Their weapon signatures are unlike anything in our database. Are they dangerous? We do not know, Kresh admitted. The technology is too advanced for us to properly analyze. Our scientists believe the platforms could be a bluff. Impressive looking but harmless. Or they could be exactly what the humans claim. Weapons capable of destroying our entire fleet. Ambassador Zekthor spoke up. Your Majesty, I recommend we test them. Send a small probe fleet across the border. If the humans attack, we will learn what their weapons can do. If they do not attack, we will know their threat is empty. The Emperor considered this. How many ships? 50 capital ships, Zekthor said. Enough to be significant, but not enough to risk our main force. If the humans have real weapons, 50 ships is an acceptable loss. If they do not, 50 ships will be enough to break through their border. Emperor Thalzeron nodded slowly. Make it so, but broadcast the entire event. I want every species in the galaxy to see what happens when someone refuses the sovereignty. On Sentinel Prime, alarms began to sound. Admiral Chen moved quickly to the tactical display. Captain Webb was already there. Report, Sarah commanded. 50 sovereignty ships are moving toward the border, Webb said. They are in battle formation. They are broadcasting their approach on all public channels. The entire galaxy is watching. Sarah felt her jaw tighten. They were making it a show, a demonstration to other species about what happened when you defied the sovereignty. But they had picked the wrong species to demonstrate on. Send them a final warning, Sarah ordered. Make sure it is recorded on all channels. A communication officer nodded. Sarah took a deep breath and activated the broadcast. Sovereignty vessels, this is Admiral Chen of Terran Command. You are approaching the terminus line. This is a restricted border. Turn back now or you will be engaged. This is your final warning. The 50 ships did not slow down. They continued forward. Their weapons were charging. Their shields were raised. They crossed the terminus line. They have crossed the border, Webb said quietly. Sarah looked at the tactical display one more time. 50 ships, thousands of crew members. People who were just following orders. People who did not know what they were flying into. But the line had been drawn. The warning had been given. If humanity backed down now, the sovereignty would never stop. They would push and push until there was nothing left of human independence. Defense platforms, Sarah said quietly. Fire. What happened next lasted exactly 47 seconds. The defense platforms activated. They did not fire missiles. They did not use lasers. They used kinetic strikes. Projectiles accelerated to relativistic speeds. Weapons that had been perfected during the bio-wars. Weapons that could not be stopped once fired. The projectiles hit their targets with perfect precision. Engines were destroyed. Weapon systems were disabled. Shield generators were shattered. Some ships were hit by multiple strikes. Within seconds, they were drifting hulks. Others had their command bridges taken out. They went dark immediately. Not a single Terran shot missed. Not a single platform malfunctioned. The defense grid worked exactly as designed. 47 seconds after the platforms opened fire, all 50 sovereignty ships were disabled or destroyed. 0 had managed to return fire. 0 had managed to retreat back across the border. On the Eternal Glory, the command chamber was completely silent. Emperor Thalzeron stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His 50 ships were gone, just like that. Faster than he could have imagined possible. How? He whispered. General Kresh was shaking. The projectiles moved too fast for our sensors to properly track. The targeting was perfect. Every shot hit exactly where it needed to disable the ship. They did not even waste ammunition. 1 or 2 strikes per vessel, precise, efficient, deadly. Life signs? The Emperor asked. Many ships still have life support, another officer reported. The humans targeted weapons and engines but avoided crew quarters when possible. They were trying to disable, not necessarily kill. That made it worse somehow. The humans could have annihilated the entire probe fleet. Instead, they had shown restraint. They had shown mercy. But they had also shown overwhelming power. Ambassador Zekthor's face had gone pale. Your Majesty, I may have miscalculated. The humans are not bluffing. Clearly, the Emperor said coldly. Another message came through. Admiral Chen again. Her face appeared on every screen in the Sovereignty fleet. This time, her message was broadcast to the entire galaxy. This is Admiral Sarah Chen. The Sovereignty has tested our border and learned that our warning was not a bluff. We have disabled 50 of their ships with minimal casualties. We did not seek this conflict. We gave clear warning. The border was crossed against our explicit orders. She paused. Her eyes seemed to look directly at the Emperor. To the Galactic Sovereignty, We are sending rescue vessels to retrieve survivors from your damaged ships. We will provide medical care and return your people to you unharmed. We take no pleasure in this violence. We want only to be left alone." Another pause. To the rest of the galaxy. "Humanity has no interest in expansion. We have no interest in conquest. We have no interest in your wars or your politics. We want only to live in peace within our own borders. The terminus line is not a threat to anyone who respects it. It is simply a boundary. Respect it, and you have nothing to fear from us." The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, billions of beings processed what they had just witnessed. The mighty galactic sovereignty had been humbled. 50 ships destroyed in less than a minute by a species that controlled only 200 systems. Questions began to spread. How did humanity have such advanced weapons? Why had they stayed isolated for 300 years? What else were they capable of? On Sentinel Prime, Captain Webb let out a long breath. "We actually did it." We stood up to them. Sarah nodded, but she did not look relieved. "This is just the beginning. The Sovereignty has 12,000 systems. We destroyed 50 of their ships. They will see that as an insult that must be answered." "You think they will attack with their full force?" "I think they have no choice," Sarah said. "Their entire empire is built on the belief that resistance is futile. If they let us defy them, other species will start to question. They have to try to crush us or their empire will begin to crack. Can we stop them? If they send thousands of ships?" Sarah looked at the tactical display. The defense platforms were powering down. Terran rescue ships were moving to collect survivors from the disabled Sovereignty vessels. "Everything was going according to plan. We can stop them," she said quietly. "But not with the defense platforms alone. If they come in force, we will have to show them more. We will have to show them why humanity has been so careful to stay isolated." Webb looked at her. "You mean the fleet?" "Yes," Sarah said. "If they force us to, we will deploy the Terran Defense Fleet. And once we do that, there will be no more secrets. The galaxy will see exactly what humanity is capable of." She turned away from the display. "Prepare all ships for possible deployment. Alert all station commanders. If the Sovereignty decides to escalate, we need to be ready." "Yes, Admiral," Webb said. He hesitated. "Do you think there is any chance they will back down?" "Accept the border?" Sarah shook her head. "No, empires do not back down. They cannot afford to. The Sovereignty will gather its forces and they will come at us with everything they have. They will try to overwhelm us with numbers. And then what happens?" Sarah looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Emperor was making his decision. Somewhere out there, thousands of ships were preparing for war. And somewhere in the depths of Terran space, weapons that had been dormant for 300 years were beginning to wake up. Then we show them why some borders exist, not to keep others out, but to keep something dangerous from getting out, Sarah said softly. We show them that humanity learned its lessons the hard way. And we show them that the most dangerous species in the galaxy is not the one that conquers. It is the one that chooses not to. On the Eternal Glory, Emperor Thalziran stood before his war council. His decision was made. Mobilize the fleet, he commanded. 5,000 ships. Every battle group we can spare. We will crush these humans and show the galaxy what happens when you defy the sovereignty. The council members saluted and moved to carry out their orders. Only Ambassador Zekthor remained behind. Your Majesty, he said carefully, perhaps we should consider why the humans have such advanced weapons. Perhaps there is more to their isolation than we understand. The Emperor turned cold eyes on him. 3 weeks later, the Sovereignty fleet assembled at Rally Point Karis. 5,000 capital ships, the largest military force the galaxy had seen in a century. Warships from 40 different species. Weapons that could level continents. Shields that could withstand nuclear strikes. It was magnificent. It was terrifying. It was meant to be unstoppable. Emperor Thalziran walked through the command bridge of the Eternal Glory. Around him, officers worked at their stations, preparing coordinates, checking weapon systems, running final diagnostics. The entire fleet was ready. Status report, the Emperor commanded. General Kresh stepped forward. All ships are in position. We will jump to the terminus line in coordinated formation. Once we arrive, we will push through their defense platforms with overwhelming force. Our analysts predict the platforms cannot possibly target 5,000 ships before we break through. And then? Then we push into Terran space and force them to surrender. Without the border defenses, they have nothing. 200 systems cannot hope to resist us. The Emperor nodded. It was a good plan. Simple, direct, Overwhelming. Begin the jump. The Sovereignty fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel. The journey would take 3 hours. 3 hours to reach the terminus line. 3 hours to begin the invasion that would crush human independence forever. On Sentinel Prime, alarms sounded across all stations. Admiral Chen arrived at the command center within minutes. Captain Webb was already reviewing the sensor data. "They are coming," Webb reported. 5,000 ships. Maybe more. They will arrive at the border in approximately 2 hours and 40 minutes. Sarah studied the projections. 5,000 ships. It was exactly what she had expected. The Sovereignty was committing everything. How did we detect them so early? They are still in FTL, Webb smiled slightly. Our sensors can detect FTL signatures. We have been tracking their fleet since they left Rally Point Karis. We know exactly where they are and exactly when they will arrive. That was impossible. Every species in the galaxy knew you could not detect ships while they were in faster-than-light travel. But apparently, humanity had figured out how. "Activate Protocol Omega," Sarah ordered. Webb's expression became serious. "Admiral, are you certain?" "Once we deploy the fleet, there will be no hiding what we are anymore." "The Sovereignty is coming with 5,000 ships," Sarah said. "They have forced our hand." "Activate Protocol Omega." "Yes, Admiral," Webb said. He entered the authorization codes. Across Terran space, 200 Terran warships received their orders. They had been waiting for this moment for 300 years, training, preparing, hoping. This day would never come, but now it was here. The ships were different from anything in the galaxy. Sleek, black, almost invisible against the darkness of space. They did not need large engines because they used instantaneous FTL drives. They did not need thick armor because they relied on precision and speed. They were not designed to conquer. They were designed to defend, and they were very good at their job. 2 hours later, the Sovereignty fleet emerged from FTL travel at the terminus line. 5,000 ships appeared in perfect formation. Their weapons were already charging. Their shields were already raised. They were ready for battle. But something was wrong. The defense platforms were still there, still active, still waiting. But that was expected. What was not expected were the 200 ships that suddenly appeared throughout the Sovereignty fleet, not near the fleet, not approaching the fleet, inside the fleet, scattered among the Sovereignty ships like seeds in a field. On the Eternal Glory, chaos erupted. Officers shouted warnings. Alarms blared. Tactical displays went wild trying to process what had just happened. How did they get here? Emperor Thalzeron demanded. "We just arrived ourselves." "Unknown, Your Majesty," General Kresh said. His voice was shaking. They appeared simultaneously. All 200 ships materialized at the same instant. Our sensors detected no FTL signatures, no energy buildups. "They were just suddenly there. What are they doing?" "Nothing, sir. They are just holding position, but what?" Kresh looked at the tactical display. His face had gone pale. "They have weapons lock on every ship in our fleet. All 5,000 vessels. They are showing us their firing solutions." The Emperor stared. On his display, he could see the targeting lasers. Thin beams of light that painted every critical system on his flagship. The bridge. The engines. The weapons arrays. The shield generators. Every single vulnerable point was marked. And it was not just his ship. Every vessel in the fleet was similarly marked. The Terran ships were not threatening to destroy them. They were demonstrating that they could destroy them. They were showing perfect fire control solutions on 5,000 targets simultaneously. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. The Terran ships held position. Their targeting lasers continued to paint their targets. They did not fire. They did not communicate. They simply waited. Those 10 minutes felt like 10 hours. Every officer in the Sovereignty fleet understood what was happening. The humans were making a point. They were showing that size did not matter. Numbers did not matter. The Sovereignty had brought 5,000 ships. The Terrans had brought 200. And those 200 ships had complete control of the battlefield. If the Terrans wanted to, they could destroy the entire fleet before the Sovereignty could respond. Their weapons were already locked on. Their positions were perfect. The Sovereignty ships were surrounded, outnumbered, and completely at their mercy. And yet the Terrans did not fire. After exactly 10 minutes, a message came through. Admiral Chen's face appeared on every screen in the Sovereignty fleet. Emperor Thalzeron, she said calmly. "You have brought 5,000 ships to our border. You came here to invade our space and force us to submit. You believed that overwhelming numbers would be enough to break through our defenses." She paused. "As you can see, you were wrong. Every ship in your fleet is currently targeted by Terran weapons. We have firing solutions on every bridge, every engine, every critical system. We could destroy your entire fleet in less than 5 minutes. You would not have time to retreat. You would not have time to respond. You would simply cease to exist." Another pause. The Emperor's hands gripped the arms of his command chair so hard his claws drew blood. "But we are not going to do that," Admiral Chen continued. "We are not going to fire on you. We are not going to destroy your ships. We are not going to kill your people. Do you know why?" No one answered. The entire Sovereignty fleet was silent. "Because we do not want war," Chen said. "We never wanted war. We wanted only to be left alone. You are the ones who came to our border. You are the ones who threatened us. You are the ones who tried to force us to submit. And yet even now, even with your fleet completely at our mercy, we choose not to destroy you." She leaned forward slightly. "This is your only warning, Emperor. Take your fleet and go home. Accept the terminus line as the border between our peoples. Leave us alone and we will leave you alone. But if you cross this border again, if you threaten us again, we will not demonstrate. We will not show restraint. We will eliminate every ship that crosses the line. This is not a bluff. This is not a threat. This is a promise." The Terran ships vanished. All 200 of them. They disappeared as suddenly as they had arrived. One moment they were there, targeting lasers, painting every Sovereignty vessel. The next moment they were gone. Vanished into whatever impossible FTL system allowed them to move instantaneously across space. The Sovereignty fleet hung in space. 5,000 ships. The most powerful military force in the galaxy. And they had just been completely humiliated. On the Eternal Glory, Emperor Thalziron sat in his command chair. His hands were still shaking. His mind was racing. Everything he had believed about the balance of power in the galaxy had just been proven wrong. "Your Majesty," General Kresh said quietly. "Your orders?" The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Part of him wanted to order the attack anyway. To charge forward, to test whether the humans really would destroy them all. His pride demanded it. His honor demanded it, but his mind knew the truth. The humans had demonstrated overwhelming technological superiority. They had shown they could appear anywhere, target anything, destroy everything. And they had chosen not to. They had shown mercy when they could have shown slaughter. That restraint was more terrifying than any weapon. "We returned to Sovereignty space," the Emperor said quietly. "All ships. Immediate withdrawal." The fleet began to turn, slowly, carefully. No one wanted to make any sudden moves that might be interpreted as hostile. They withdrew from the terminus line. They jumped back to FTL. They fled. The largest military force in the galaxy retreated without firing a single shot. On Sentinel Prime, Captain Webb let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. "They are leaving." "Yes," Admiral Chen said. She did not look happy. "But this is not over. We have shown them our capabilities. The galaxy now knows what we can do. Is that not a good thing?" "I do not know," Sarah admitted. "We built the border to protect others from us. We isolated ourselves to keep our weapons contained. Now we have been forced to show those weapons. The question is what the galaxy will do with that knowledge. Will they fear us?" "Some will," Sarah said. "Others will respect us. And some will want to understand us. The isolation is over, Marcus." Why did humanity have such advanced technology? Why had they stayed isolated for 300 years? What were they hiding? What were they protecting the galaxy from? Emperor Thalziron wanted answers. He summoned his chief scientist, a brilliant researcher named Dr. Valora. She was from a species that valued knowledge above all else. If anyone could uncover the truth about humanity, it was her. "I need to know everything about the humans," the Emperor said. "Their history, their technology, why they isolated themselves, everything." "I will begin immediately," Dr. Valora said. "But Your Majesty, I must warn you. If the humans have kept secrets for 300 years, discovering them may be difficult." "Do whatever you must," the Emperor said. "I need to understand what we are dealing with." Dr. Valora spent weeks searching. She accessed every database in Sovereignty space. She studied every record of human contact. She analyzed every piece of data from the border incidents. And slowly a picture began to form. The humans had not always been isolationists. 300 years ago, they had been explorers. They had been expanding. They had been developing new technologies at an incredible rate, and then suddenly they stopped. They withdrew. They built their border and refused all contact. Why? The answer was hidden in old archives, files that had been marked as classified by the humans themselves, but some information had leaked out over the centuries. References to something called the bio-wars, mentions of weapons that should never have been built, warnings about technologies that humanity had developed and then abandoned. Dr. Valora dug deeper. She found fragments of human transmissions from 300 years ago, distress calls, evacuation orders, reports of entire colonies going silent, and finally she found what she was looking for, a single message that had been broadcast on all channels before humanity went silent. It was a warning. This is the Terran government emergency broadcast. We are issuing this message to all species in the galaxy. Humanity has developed weapons that can destroy entire planets. We have created artificial intelligence that can hack any computer system. We have built nanotech that can disassemble matter at the molecular level. These technologies have been used in our civil war. The bio-wars have killed billions of our own people. We nearly destroyed ourselves. We are withdrawing from all contact with other species. We are establishing a quarantine border. This is not to protect us from you. This is to protect you from us. Do not cross the border. Do not attempt to make contact. We will defend the quarantine with all necessary force. Humanity must never be allowed to spread these technologies beyond our own space. This is our responsibility. This is our burden. We are sorry. Dr. Valora stared at the message for a long time. Then she began to search for more information. What she found horrified her. The bio-wars had been worse than any conflict the galaxy had seen. Humanity had split into factions. Each faction had developed weapons to use against the others. Biological weapons that could target specific genetic markers, nanomachines that could rewrite DNA, AI systems that could predict and counter every military strategy. Entire planets had been sterilized. Billions had died. The survivors had looked at what they had done and been horrified. They had realized that their technology had advanced faster than their wisdom. They had created weapons that could destroy galaxies, and they had almost used them on themselves. So they made a choice. They would quarantine themselves. They would build a border and never cross it. They would contain their dangerous technologies and never share them. They would protect the galaxy by isolating themselves from it. Dr. Valora found more evidence. Human exploration probes had been detected throughout the galaxy. Stealth probes that most species never noticed. These probes had mapped nearly 90% of known space. The humans had been watching, learning, studying. They could have conquered the galaxy centuries ago. Their technology was that far ahead. But they chose not to. They chose isolation instead. Dr. Valora brought her findings to the Emperor. She showed him everything. The history of the bio-wars, the evidence of human exploration, the proof of their technological superiority. And finally, she showed him the message. Emperor Thalziron read the warning. His hands were shaking by the time he finished. They isolated themselves not because they feared us, he said slowly, but because they feared themselves. Yes, Your Majesty, Dr. Valora said. The border was not meant to keep us out. It was meant to keep their weapons in. They could have destroyed us at any time, but they chose not to. They chose restraint. The Emperor was silent for a long time. He thought about the 5,000 ships he had sent to the border. He thought about how easily the humans could have destroyed them all. He thought about the mercy they had shown. They could conquer the entire galaxy, he said. They could have done so 300 years ago, Dr. Valora confirmed. But they chose not to. They chose to build a wall and stay behind it. That choice tells us more about them than any weapon demonstration ever could. The Emperor stood and walked to a window. Outside, the stars shone bright. Somewhere out there, humanity waited behind their border, not because they had to, but because they chose to. What do we do now? The Emperor asked. I recommend we accept the border, Dr. Valora said. The humans have shown remarkable restraint. They have shown us mercy when they could have shown us destruction. They ask only to be left alone. I believe we should honor that request, but not everyone agreed. Ambassador Zekthor led a faction within the sovereignty that saw humanity as a threat. They argued that a species with such advanced weapons could never be trusted. They said the border should be broken. Humanity should be forced to submit or be destroyed. Your Majesty, Zekthor said at the next council meeting. The humans represent an existential threat to the sovereignty. They have weapons we cannot defend against. Technology we cannot match. They could destroy us whenever they choose. We cannot allow such a threat to exist. But they have not destroyed us, Dr. Valora argued. They have had multiple opportunities. They chose mercy instead. That should mean something. It means they are waiting, Zekthor said, building their strength, preparing for conquest. We should strike now before they become even more powerful. The debate continued for weeks. The Sovereignty Council was split. Some wanted peace, others wanted war. The Emperor listened to both sides, but he had not yet made his decision. Then Ambassador Zekthor did something foolish. He gathered a group of like-minded officers, warriors who believed that strength was the only answer. They took a fleet of 1,000 ships without authorization. They planned to attack the border and force the Emperor's hand. If they could break through the Terran defenses, they would prove humanity was not invincible. If they failed, well, they were willing to die for what they believed. On Sentinel Prime, Admiral Chen watched the rogue fleet approach. She had been expecting something like this. Not everyone in the Sovereignty wanted peace. Some would need to be shown the consequences of crossing the border. It is Zekthor, Captain Webb said. The ambassador from the first contact. He is leading the attack personally. He still does not understand, Sarah said quietly. He thinks this is about power, about dominance. He does not realize we are trying to protect him. What are your orders? Sarah looked at the approaching fleet. 1,000 ships, thousands of crew members. Most of them were just following orders. They did not deserve to die for their leader's pride, but the border had to be defended. The line had been drawn. Full defensive response, Sarah ordered. All platforms, all ships. Disable every vessel that crosses the border. Target life pods before they can be destroyed. Save as many crew as possible. Understood, Webb said. The rogue fleet crossed the terminus line. They came in fast, weapons blazing. They thought speed and aggression would carry them through. They were wrong. The Terran response was devastating. Defense platforms opened fire. Kinetic strikes hit with perfect precision. Terran warships appeared among the rogue fleet and began systematic elimination of every vessel. But this time, the Terrans also deployed rescue systems. As each ship was disabled, Terran rescue vessels immediately moved in. They captured escape pods. They tractored damaged ships to safety. They provided medical care to injured crew members. The entire battle lasted less than 1 hour. All 1,000 rogue ships were disabled or destroyed. 0 Terran casualties. But nearly 70% of the Sovereignty crew survived thanks to immediate rescue operations. Ambassador Zekthor's flagship was among the disabled ships. He was captured and held in medical bay aboard a Terran station. When he woke up, Admiral Chen was waiting for him. Ambassador, Sarah said, you attacked our border with 1,000 ships. We disabled all of them in less than an hour. We could have killed everyone aboard. Instead, we saved as many as we could. Why do you think we did that? Zekthor stared at her. His pride was broken. His confidence was shattered. I do not know, he admitted. Because we are not your enemy, Sarah said. We never were. You came to our border and threatened us. We defended ourselves. But we take no pleasure in killing. We take no pride in destruction. We want only to be left alone. She leaned forward. 300 years ago, humanity nearly destroyed itself. We built weapons that could end all life. The galaxy watched as Ambassador Zekthor returned to Sovereignty space. His fleet was broken. His pride was shattered. But he was alive. They were all alive. Humanity had defeated them and then saved them. Emperor Thalziron stood in his throne room as Zekthor was brought before him. The ambassador looked different, humbled, changed. The arrogance was gone from his eyes. You disobeyed orders, the emperor said coldly. You took ships without authorization. You attacked without approval. Give me one reason why I should not execute you for treason. Zekthor knelt. I have no excuse, Your Majesty. I was wrong. About everything. I thought humanity was a threat that needed to be eliminated. I thought their power made them dangerous. I was wrong. Explain, the Emperor commanded. The humans destroyed my entire fleet in less than an hour, Zekthor said. They could have killed us all. Instead, they saved us. They provided medical care. They repaired our ships. They treated us with mercy when they had every right to destroy us completely. He looked up at the Emperor. "Your Majesty, I spoke with Admiral Chen. She told me why they built the border. 300 years ago, humanity nearly destroyed itself with their own weapons. They learned that power without restraint leads only to destruction. They isolated themselves not to threaten us, but to protect us from their own destructive potential." The Emperor listened carefully. Around him, his council members leaned forward. "They could conquer the entire galaxy," Zekthor continued. "Their technology is centuries beyond ours. Their weapons are unstoppable. Their ships can appear anywhere instantly. But they choose not to use these advantages. They choose restraint. They choose mercy. That makes them more dangerous than any conqueror, but also more trustworthy." "You are saying we should accept their border?" "I am saying we should respect it," Zekthor said. "The humans ask only to be left alone. They promise to leave us alone in return. They have proven they can destroy us if they choose. But they also proven they will not choose to unless we force them. That is a better deal than we could ever hope for." The throne room was silent. The Emperor considered the ambassador's words. He thought about the 2 battles at the border. He thought about the mercy humanity had shown. He thought about the truth Dr. Valora had uncovered. Finally, he spoke. "Ambassador Zekthor, you disobeyed orders and led an unauthorized attack. For that you could be executed. However, you have also shown me something important. You have shown me that humanity values life, even the lives of their enemies. This is not weakness. This is strength of a kind the sovereignty has forgotten." He stood from his throne. "I'm removing you from your position as ambassador. You will be reassigned, but you will not be executed. Instead, you will help me draft a treaty. A formal recognition of the Terminus Line as the permanent border between the sovereignty and Terran space." Murmurs spread through the council chamber. Some members looked relieved. Others looked concerned, but no one openly objected. "We will call it the Accord of Terminus," the Emperor continued. "Both sides will agree to respect the border. Both sides will agree to non-aggression. Humanity will remain in their space. We will remain in ours. This war is over." 2 weeks later, the treaty was signed. It was broadcast across the galaxy. Emperor Thalzaran and Admiral Sarah Chen appeared together in a joint message. They spoke of peace. They spoke of mutual respect. They spoke of the importance of recognizing boundaries. The galaxy breathed a sigh of relief. The crisis was over. The border was recognized. Humanity would remain isolated, but they would be respected. On Sentinel Prime, Admiral Chen stood on the observation deck. Captain Webb joined her. Together, they looked out at the stars. "We did it," Webb said. "We defended the border without conquest. We showed our strength without using it to dominate. We held the line." "Yes," Sarah agreed. "But the work is not over. The border still stands. It will always stand. That is our promise to ourselves and to the galaxy. Do you think we will ever cross it? Explore beyond our borders again?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Maybe, someday, when we are ready. When we are sure we have learned our lessons well enough, that we will never repeat our mistakes. But that day is not today. Today, the border protects both us and them." She turned to look at him. "The greatest enemy any species faces is not other species. It is their own capacity for destruction. We learned that the hard way. Now we teach it to the galaxy by example. We show them that true power is not measured by how much you can destroy, but by what you choose not to destroy." Webb nodded. "What happens now?" "Now we wait," Sarah said. "We watch. We maintain the border. And we hope that other species learn from what happened here. That they learn that restraint is strength. That mercy is power. That the most dangerous weapon is the one you choose never to use." Across the galaxy, species began to change their thinking. The sovereignty's defeat at the border had shown them something important. Military might was not the only form of power. Perhaps not even the most important form. Humanity had weapons that could conquer galaxies. But they kept those weapons locked away. They had technology that could change the course of history. But they refused to share it. Not out of greed, not out of fear, but out of responsibility. Some species saw this as weakness, but most saw it for what it really was. Wisdom. The wisdom to know that some power should never be used. The wisdom to understand that isolation was sometimes better than conquest. The wisdom to recognize that the hardest battles are the ones you choose not to fight. 50 years passed. The Accord of Terminus held strong. The border remained uncrossed. Humanity and the sovereignty existed side by side. each respecting the other's space. But something began to change. Humanity started to open up, slowly, carefully. They began limited cultural exchanges. They allowed some trade. They shared some non-military technology, not because they had to, but because they chose to. They did it on their terms, at their pace, always maintaining control, always keeping their most dangerous technologies secure. But they showed the galaxy that isolation did not have to be permanent, that trust could be rebuilt, that peace could be maintained through strength and wisdom combined. Admiral Chen was old now, retired, but she still visited Sentinel Prime sometimes. She would stand on the observation deck and look at the terminus line, the border that had defined her career, the line she had defended without ever crossing. One day, a young officer approached her. He was nervous. Admiral Chen was a legend now, the woman who had faced down an empire and won without firing the first shot. "Admiral," the young officer said, "I have a question. Why did we build the border? Was it really to protect others from us? Or were we just afraid?" Sarah smiled. It was a question she had asked herself many times. "Both," she said. "We were afraid of what we had become, afraid of what we might do if we had no limits. So we built the border not to keep others out, but to keep ourselves honest, to remind us that some lines should never be crossed, that some weapons should never be used, that true power comes from restraint, not from domination." She looked out at the stars. 300 years ago, we nearly destroyed ourselves. We learned the hardest lesson any species can learn, that the greatest threat we face is not out there among the stars. It is here within ourselves. It is our own capacity for destruction, our own willingness to use terrible weapons for terrible reasons. She turned to the young officer. The border stands as a reminder, a promise, a warning. It tells us that we must always be vigilant against our own worst impulses. It tells the galaxy that we recognize our own danger, and it tells everyone that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is set a limit and refuse to cross it, no matter what. The young officer nodded slowly. "And the border will always stand?" "Always," Sarah confirmed. "As long as humanity exists, the terminus line will mark the boundary of our ambitions. Not because we cannot cross it, but because we choose not to. That choice is what makes us who we are. That choice is what separates us from the monsters we once were." She placed a hand on the young officer's shoulder. "Remember this, young one. The most powerful weapon in the universe is not the one that can destroy planets. It is not the technology that can conquer galaxies. The most powerful weapon is the will to say no, the strength to choose restraint when you have the power to choose destruction, the wisdom to build walls not to keep others out, but to keep your own demons in." Years later, when historians wrote about this period, they called it the war that wasn't, the conflict where humanity faced an empire of 12,000 systems and won without conquest, the moment when the galaxy learned that the most dangerous species was not the one that fought, but the one that chose not to. The terminus line became famous throughout the galaxy. It stood as a monument to restraint, a symbol of wisdom, a reminder that power without control was just destruction waiting to happen, and humanity stood guard over that line, not with pride, not with arrogance, but with quiet determination. They had learned their lesson 300 years ago. They would never forget it. They would never repeat it. The border was not a wall. It was a promise to the galaxy that humanity would never impose their destructive power on others, a promise to themselves that they would never become the monsters they once were.